Want to skip the small talk and get into the heart of it? So do we. Life isn't about perfection, it's about connection. And together, we're building healthy relationships, one conversation at a time. This is Say It Here. Hello and welcome to Say It Here, where it's not about perfection.
It's about connection. I'm Judy Franco.
And I'm Corey Ajmi.
Today, we have the pleasure of talking to somebody that we are so excited to have here, Dr. Robyn Koslowitz. She is a licensed clinical psychologist. She is the educational director of the Targeted Parenting Institute. It's a parenting system that uses empirically validated, I'm just going to use your words, Robyn. You're going to explain them.
Sure.
Empirically validated techniques to train parents and children to overcome various disorders of childhood in a preventative fashion in order to minimize or avoid later expensive psychotherapy. And of course, as parents, we all appreciate that.
Welcome, Robyn.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you. Everybody talks about your methods, and I've heard so much about you online. You're everywhere. I can't even list here all of the media outlets that have had you on. So you obviously have something that we really need to hear about. But before we start, Corey, do you have something to say to Dr. Robyn?
So both Judy and I are from Arabic backgrounds, and there's a phrase called fish elbe, which means empty your heart. Fish is like empty, heart is LB is heart. And so we start each episode by saying something that's on our minds, getting something off our chest, and getting to know you a little bit better, hopefully. I'm going to fish LB about writing. So I'm an author, and I am struggling. It's just been one of those weeks. Actually, it's been like a month. So I'm just having a hard time getting into that creative space, creating content that makes me feel excited, and I'm waiting for the breakthrough. I feel it coming, but I'm feeling a little bit of the till it comes.
Yeah.
That probably happens to writers all the time, though, I feel like. Is
Yeah,
it just
does.
like writer's block?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a block because I'm actually writing, but elevating the material to a place that, like, when I know I'm getting it, when I find myself laughing out loud. Like that, whatever the thing is, you know, or when I can't wait to get back to it because it's just so much fun and the scene's so exciting. So for right now, I'm just like putting the words down on the page. And I have enough experience to know it'll come, but
It's annoying.
yeah, there you go.
Putting it very
I mean, I'm a
succinctly.
writer too. So I know that sometimes when you're writing, it's like your fingers can't move fast enough to get the words out. And it's like, you're like in this flow state and it's just going. And sometimes it's work and it's just the grind. And it's true that writing is about like the seat of the pants on the seat of the chair, right? And like you just do that work and you grind. But the joy of writing and that feeling of like it's coming together.
Yes.
That's when you don't have it, that's very hard. So I so resonate with that like, I know exactly what that's like, at least for me. And it's really frustrating.
Yep.
I guess I can relate to you on a creative level just because of, you know, coming up with topics to talk about on the radio and that type of, also we have to write 2 posts every day, which I could fish LB about that for 10 hours, but I'm not going to. The fish LB I want to talk about today and just get this off my chest for a minute is meetings and anything having to do with corporate structure is so annoying to me. I had to drive today to Trenton, where my work is located, for a meeting that they didn't tell us what it was about. It was an all hands meeting. And when we got there, you know, it was fine. It was a bunch of like a lot of corporate stuff or whatever, but I was so nervous all night. What is this about? And why do I have to drive all the way in there? And you know, of course you think the worst. I'm like, oh, we're all getting fired today. The radio station is sold today and we're all out of a job. So it's just the whole like corporate mindset irks me. Just text me, say, come in tomorrow. We want to talk about ratings, but they didn't do that, you know? So it frustrated me. It's an hour-long drive. I'm so glad to be back. So thank you for letting me fish LB. So your turn to fish LB, Robyn, if you want to, doctor.
So mine is definitely like Corey's, which is I was just told that I'm giving a TEDx talk. And
That's
it's super exciting.
amazing.
I've been applying for 5 years. I have a concept that I really want to share on the TED stage. So super excited.
You better
I've had a
share
lot
it
of
here first,
disappointments.
hello. We want to hear it first.
Yeah, I'll definitely tell you some of the concepts that I'm workshopping now.
Great.
But that sense of like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. I need to write this talk. I need 18 minutes of saying this clear idea in 18 minutes. And I need to get it out with the words that will resonate. I want the audience to get it, right? I want to be of service to them. I want them to understand it. Which words do I use? Plus the whole memorizing it, keeping it to the 18 minutes thing. There's a lot that happens on TED. It's quite the timeline. And like, I'm a girl, right? It's like wardrobe, everything, makeup. Like, I gotta be camera ready and on stage with it. Aside from all the other stuff, I have to like also present myself well, because there's something to that for an audience. They're giving you the gift of your attention. You want to present yourself as best as you can.
100%.
It's a lot. I happen to be shy by nature. I know I don't appear that way. But the thinking of the words and making sure I'm capsulating it, and is the speech exactly saying what I want it to say? I so resonate, Corey.
Even if you're not in the mood, you got to sit down. And,
yeah.
Annoying.
Yeah.
But, I'm so excited.
Me too. So I think it's kind of a great place to start. Do you want to talk about some of those concepts that you're going to be sharing in the TED Talk?
I don't think they're top secret. It's in my book. So I wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Parenting, which is about the top most growing parenting style in America today, which is cycle breaking parenting. The subtitle is very meaningful to me. It's Break the Cycle, Become the Parent You Always Wanted to Be. So for me, writing this book was really my journey of somebody who I myself have PTSD. And when I knew that I was going to become a mom, I knew that it was inevitable that my damage would damage my kids. And I wanted to fix that. So I would read all the parenting books, and none of them had the help that I needed, right? They gave you these wonderful techniques for parenting once you're not affected by your PTSD. But for me, with my PTSD, I just knew, just to make it like concrete, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I remember thinking that if it's this unpleasant for me to be inside my body, with my panic attacks and my flashbacks and my insomnia and my startle response, what is it doing to like this developing baby inside of my body? Like, I get it. She's swimming in a soup of all these hormones. And I would go to the stacks at Bopst Library, because I was a graduate student then, and I would look for research on what does PTSD do to a baby. And there was nothing. Like the library, which never let me down. And it was a 26-year journey to writing this book, because that's how my daughter is 26 now. So it took me all of that time to answer the question that I myself had. So that's really what the TED Talk's about.
Would you call yourself healed now? And if you don't mind, can you briefly share, I know from the book what you went through, but for our listeners to briefly share what really caused the big trauma in your life.
So I'll share my story second. I'll first answer your question.
Okay.
You asked such a good question, Judy, that you don't even realize how good a question it is. When you say, are you healed from trauma? That makes a very clear error that you are set up to make. We all make this mistake. The word trauma comes from the Greek word trauma, which means wound. And we heal from wounds, right? Like you get a cut and then it crusts over and then it turns all sorts of interesting colors. And then a few weeks later, it's like it never happened. Maybe if it was really bad, you have a scar. And that's how we expect trauma to work. If it happened so long ago, why am I not healed yet? Like I should be better already. Oh my gosh, like what kind of a drama queen am I? Like that happened 20 years ago. Why is it still affecting me? I should be over it. The thing is though, trauma is not a wound. Trauma is an app. Trauma installs software in our brain that allows us to cope in the world once we've experienced something that was way too big for us to handle. So when we have this app now running in our head, the thing about software is it's going to keep on going. Every time it turns on, it keeps executing its old program, even if the old programming isn't something you want anymore.
Yeah.
You're set up to make that mistake. We're all set up to make that mistake. Am I healed from my trauma? No, because trauma is not a wound. I joke that PTSD right now is how my brain functions, not how my brain dysfunctions, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder would imply dysfunction. it's how I function. I function around my PTSD. Have I learned to get a better handle on this trauma app and deselect its permissions and say, nope, I'm not listening to that alarm right now. I'm handling this differently? Absolutely. But I'm never going to heal from it because it's not a wound.
So interesting.
But it makes sense you ask that question.
Well, because we all think, okay, one day, whatever we go through, this will be over soon. But you're saying that's not how it works. Explain the app. Well, first, you got to tell everybody because your story is incredible.
Okay. So just to like a little bit explain the app, it simply means your brain has to adjust to a new reality. So it installs software to handle this new reality. That's what I mean by the app. So my story, and I'll explain the app more with my story, and trigger warning, my story is hard to hear. So I was
Is it hard to tell? I don't want to pressure you to tell.
It's not hard. At this point, it's not hard to tell, and I've done the work. But
okay.
But I just have to warn people it's hard to hear. So I was raised in a home. My parents were wonderful people, but I was born very late in their lives. They had 3 much older sons. And then many years later, I was the surprise baby. And my father, from the age when I was 5 years old, my father developed a very serious heart condition. He would have heart episodes. Sometimes we would have to go on an ambulance, take him because he would suddenly clutch his chest and we had to run to the hospital. So my childhood was very much organized around him being sick and just knowing that at any moment something could happen. I remember at a very young age, as wonderful as my mother was, and she was a school guidance counselor and a brilliant, wonderful, wise person. So I had that privilege. Yeah. But she would sometimes have to leave to work and she would say things like, wake Tati up and make sure he takes his pills, right? And that's a lot of responsibility for a very little child, right? Remind him that he has another pill to take, right? So it was living around that illness. I remember as a little girl, because my mother was a more anxious person and because I was the only child home, if he had a heart episode, she didn't really have where to leave me, especially in the middle of the night. So I would go along on the ambulance. So I would do my homework, on an ambulance going. I remember in 5th grade, I wrote an essay and my teacher told me, sweetheart, this is such a beautiful essay, but you wrote it so sloppily. It's like you gave me this wonderful present in ugly wrapping paper. Why would you disrespect your work this way? And it did not occur to me to say, yeah, well, my dad was having a heart attack at times, so
I wrote it on the ambulance.
I was writing it on an ambulance. I just said, I'm sorry. When I was 16, my father had his fatal heart attack. So he had a heart attack. I was woken up in the middle of the night. My mother was screaming. I was a lifeguard, so I knew CPR. And I started doing CPR on my father, trying to save his life. That is really where I developed the PTSD from, the taste of his mouth, the sensation, how he looked. He sort of looked like a rubber mannequin, not like my father. And I, was doing CPR until the paramedics came and they literally had to drag me off his body to administer defibrillation. I was fighting because I was so zoned in doing the CPR that I wasn't really perceiving them. And they were telling me let go, we're going to do defibrillation. And I didn't even register. So literally 2 guys dragged me off his body and I was shrieking, let me know, I have to save him. And they administered the defibrillation. He had been dead already for quite some time. And after that, I really believed that it was my fault. What happened from that was I became a real perfectionist. I believed that I am someone whose mistakes kill people, so I better never make a mistake again. My God. I also learned how to dissociate. I am the most dialed in person. I literally wrote my dissertation from NYU. I was a young mom coming home on New Jersey Transit every day from NYU to central New Jersey. And I would sit there and I would type on the train or on the bus. And a drunk guy could be drooling on my shoulder and I'm dialed in, I'm typing. The driver would have to tap me on the shoulder, ma'am, we're at our last stop, which was my stop. That's how dialed in I was. From a personal safety perspective, not the best thing, but from getting work done perspective, it was fabulous. It was like a superpower. So I was just dissociated and perfectionist, and it really worked for me, right? I would sort of disappear, and it allowed me to go through life. At the same token, I would have these panic attacks, and I would have these flashbacks, and I would have this startle response. And I think for anybody listening, if you've been through a serious trauma, and then at some level you're so functional and you're so fine, that's the paradox of trauma, right? Where I call it being a duck. You ever watch ducks on a lake and on the surface of the water, they're so serenely floating. And then under the water, they're pedaling madly. That was me, right? If you think about it, I was doing really well in life. I was married to a husband I loved. I had children. I was in a very prestigious graduate program doing at one point like NINR funded research, like really prestigious work. I was hitting it all, right? Freud has this definition of psychological success: to love, to live, and to work. I was loving, living, and working, right?
Right.
And I was so damaged. I was so not okay.
Is that the catalyst for you deciding to go into this type of work?
Very much so. My mom was a guidance counselor, right? So I sort of knew the what worked thing. She would tell us these stories about these kids she helped, and I would be in awe. She was like the New York City Guidance Counselor of the Year several years because she was such a dedicated guidance counselor. She was so amazing at like helping a little kid get over their anxiety or helping someone like, deal with their imposter syndrome so they could apply to Stuyvesant in high school, like those kinds of things. She was amazing. She was the most loving person. But I wasn't interested in what works. I was interested in like, why does it work? But then also that sense of what would help me? Like I have these panic attacks, this trauma. And let's just remember, nowadays there's TikTok and nowadays there's Google and nowadays people talk about trauma all the time. Prior to 9/11, trauma was psychology's like ugly stepsister. Like no one talked about it. We talked about OCD, we talked about ADHD, we talked about anxiety. Trauma was not at all in the like academic literature. It was like until Bessel van der Kolk wrote The Body Keeps the Score, which was after 9/11, then we started talking about trauma. I didn't even know, like that story where I say I was looking in the stacks for what does PTSD do? I was looking for what do panic attacks do because I didn't even know that what I had is called PTSD. And that it's predictable and understandable.
Did you find that out through your own research or in therapy?
I found it out through a college class. I was sitting in class and a professor was talking about PTSD as shell shock. And like it was an abnormal psych class. And it was like one of the things he was talking about. Like one day was schizophrenia, and one day was OCD, and one day was PTSD. And he was talking about the famous story of the Vietnam veteran who heard a car backfire and thought he was taking enemy fire and he shot his wife, right? And he was talking about shell shock. And he said something about witnessing death or thinking you could die. And I said, what about witnessing the death of someone you're really close to? And he's like, yeah, that would do it. I was like, oh, that's what I have. Cool.
Light
all right.
bulb.
Yeah, light bulb. But what do I do about it? And I did do some therapy, but it was very like behavioral therapy about the flashbacks and the intrusive thoughts and the panic attacks. And I learned a lot from my initial therapy. They really helped me like learn how to do deep breathing and center my body and ground myself and get more sleep so that I wouldn't have as bad panic attacks. And, they helped me with a lot. But the central sense of this dissociation and this sense of just the sense of being so damaged, that therapy didn't touch because I didn't even know that I should bring it up in therapy.
So was part of your healing the writing of your book?
Very much so. I'll tell you why. If you think about most parenting books, let's say they'll all give you these wonderful parenting techniques. And I remember reading them. I would like devour parenting books because I was damaged and I needed to parent my kids well. And I remember saying like, all of these books, it's like, pretend you're in a mall, right? And you need to get from the second floor to the roof. And it's kind of a confusing mall, but like you go to a map and they're like, yeah, you take a left over here and then there's a bank of elevators and then you have to make a right and then you go up a flight of steps and then you're on the roof. And that's great. But I'm in the sub-basement and it's pitch black down here and I don't have a flashlight. When I'm on the second floor, great, no problem. I know how to get to the roof. How do I get from the basement to the second floor? So I'll give you a perfect example. I know both of you like attachment theory. So you know how Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson, they talk in their books about how attachment boils down to four things, right? We want to have attachment with our kids. We want them to feel that sense, that felt sense of being loved and that we're in their corner. It boils down to four things. They call it the 4 S's. We want them to feel safe, soothed, and secure, and we want them to feel seen, right? And if you do that, you've done attachment well, right?
I'm writing it.
Here's the thing, though. Safe, soothed, and secure mean you share your calm with your kids. So I have calm and I expand my calm outwards. I co-regulate. So my kid's having big emotions. I'm getting frustrated and I self-regulate and then I co-regulate with my kid. We're so frustrated right now and we're going to breathe together. We're going to figure this out. It's so hard for you to hear no right now, but it's okay. And that's safe, soothed, secure. The other S of attachment, seen, is we have to share our joy with our kids. Like, wow, you are a unique individual. You are the only you that the world has. And that's incredible. Like, right? It's the look, ma, no hands. And you're like, I'm looking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's amazing. You know, the two things PTSD robs us of? Our calm and our joy, right? So how am I supposed to share my calm and my joy with my kids if I don't have calm and I don't have joy? So thank you, parenting book. Tell me to share my calm. Tell me to share my joy. I don't have calm. I don't have joy. What do I do about that?
So this was a journey to explore your PTSD and figure out how to share your calm and your joy. And, you know, they say in the writing world, write the book you want to read.
Yes.
And it sounds like you wrote what you wish you had been able to find on the shelves.
Yes. I wrote the book that I was looking for 26 years ago. Exactly. I love that. Write what you want to read, because exactly. So, and that was the journey of, I'm probably not the only one. I actually had it's a cute story now, but I went to a pitch event, you try to get a literary agent when you're a writer, and it's really frustrating and it's not the easiest thing in the world. And it was prior to COVID. It was like 2019. I went to this pitch event and I met this really seasoned New York agent, and she really meant to be kind to me. But she said to me, so who's going to read this book? You and the other 8 women who are parenting with PTSD? You don't have enough of a platform. No one's reading this.
Welcome to the writing world.
Yeah. And I was like, kind of think it's more than 8. I have this guess. Then she gave me very good advice. She said, go online and try to develop a social media community. Let's see if there's a platform. A platform meaning are there people who resonate with these concepts? I never was on social media before. I barely know how to turn on the computer. And so I just started because, again, it was that idea of maybe there's another mom out there who needs to hear this, who feels damaged by her damage and is terrified that she can't parent and is enraged at parenting books because they all tell you how to parent. They don't tell you how to be a parent. So let me try. So I went onto social media, and next thing I know, there's 29,000 other people who are following me who are like, me too.
I'm glad you brought that up, Robyn. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is what I worry about. Does everybody in the world have trauma? This is the most diagnosed psychological issue in the past 10 years. My kids are like, Ma, you gave me trauma. This one gave me trauma. I got trauma from what is real trauma? And how do we know as parents what trauma is really going to get in the way of our being parents?
Sure. Great question. And first of all, we all are. It's actually supposed to be that way. We're all supposed to very mildly and in predictable ways traumatize our kids a drop, just so that you know. So if your kids say that to you, you're normal. So tiny predictable ruptures are good in relationships. We'll get into that in a second. Here's how I define trauma, right? Like I said, trauma is not a wound. Trauma is an experience that was too big for your brain to metabolize, that shook your sense either of safety in the world or shook your sense of being able to operate competently in the world. I know this world, I get it, and I know how to act in it. If something like that happened to you, no big deal, but you're traumatized. Because what happened? Your brain had to make an adaptation in that moment. Think about someone who experiences social exclusion, a girl who's bullied, right? And suddenly no one wants to sit next to her at the lunch table. And she's, wait, is it me? What am I doing wrong? Why doesn't anybody like me? What do I do? And that experience is too big for her brain. And therefore she learns how to be a people pleaser, and she learns how to ingratiate herself with people and make sure everybody likes her. Is that traumatic the way my story of my dad died in my arms traumatic? Yes. Not if you were a Hollywood scriptwriter. It's not as big. But in terms of her brain having to change to handle that experience, yes. And that means you were traumatized. It makes no sense to compare traumas. That's why I don't believe in the concept of big T and little t traumas. It's not what happened. It's who it happened to and how it landed.
So are you saying that if somebody thinks they have trauma, they have trauma?
Yeah. I mean, if someone thinks they have trauma, but what they're describing is stress, then they don't have trauma, right? We all have stress. That's not it doesn't necessarily rise to the level of traumatic. Your brain did not change because, I once saw like an influencer, she got a product she'd been waiting for and it was missing. Some of the gems were like missing from the ring. And she's like, I'm so traumatized. This ring is not what I expected. No, you're stressed out and annoyed. And if you spent a lot of money, you have a right to be annoyed, but you're not traumatized. Like nothing shook your sense of safety in the world. You're stressed out. I hear you.
So you had said something, I read somewhere, that you said the context of your trauma story matters less than the impact on you, which I think is a little bit what you're talking about.
Yes.
So is it true that there might be two people, me and Judy, the same thing happens to both of us, but it doesn't register the same way to the both of us?
Absolutely. Right? Let's say you and Judy, one of you experienced social exclusion in your childhood, and each of you go into a meeting with the same person who's really being critical and hurtful, right? And one of you is like, this is stressful, and the other one of you needs 3 days to recover. Like it reminds you of being bullied.
Which one of us is going to need the 3 days, Corey? It's going to be me. Corey's so resilient. It's ridiculous.
I don't know. Judy
You
just
don't feel
says
that way?
these things.
Judy, what did you tell me one day, Corey? It's the story Judy tells herself.
The story Judy makes up. Yeah.
Well, I have a question. There's a reason that you called this targeted parenting. So you have to explain to us what that means.
So targeted parenting are the parenting classes that I give where I really help parent specific profiles of kids. It's different than post-traumatic parenting. Post-traumatic parenting is really about becoming a parent. Targeted parenting is more, we parent a child who is shy differently than we parent a child who has ADHD. Really, it all comes from that same root because post-traumatic parents usually lack discernment. They don't feel like, I know what my kid needs. I know what the smartest thing to do is. So I'm like, here's the research. Here's what the smartest thing to do is. Now we'll personalize it a little bit to you. And so that you can do those techniques and it works for your family. But a lot of it comes from, why did I even learn any of this stuff? Because I felt so much self-doubt as a parent, right? It's so ironic. I'm a child psychologist who was afraid to parent her own kids.
I think that this topic is bigger than parenting only, because I feel like a lot of what we talk about in this podcast is how it can be helpful to ourselves. So often we're left to having to parent ourselves. So as much as it's useful information in dealing with our children, it's useful information just in general, just to grow ourselves.
Yes. It's interesting you say that because my editor said that. She said, this is really a how-to, this book, parts 1 and 2 of it, are really a how-to guide to recovering from trauma. Parenting is just the why, right? You'll never have a better reason than parenting. But it's very funny because in the post-traumatic parenting community, a lot of the people in the community are not parenting real-world children. They're only parenting inner children. And I discovered that it's really interesting. I had someone who was very heavily invested in I have a social media community on Instagram at Dr. Koslowitz Psychology, and we have a lot of conversations, and I have a subscription, and I have Sunday conversations, and there was a woman who was really dialed in. And about a year into it, she asked if she could talk to me privately, and she said, I have a confession to make. I have to tell you something. I think she said something terrible, and I was like, oh gosh, what is this? And she said, I actually don't have kids. I came across you because I'm really trying to heal my inner child. And there's something about this that landed. Is that okay? And I was like, yes. I was taken aback.
No, you're
expecting to hear something terrible. Yeah, but
that's great.
And now it's a lot of people. There's a lot of post-traumatic parents who are just parenting, not just, but simply parenting inner children.
And this is how I feel it really ties into what Corey and I talk about here, because one of the overarching themes, or the overarching theme here, is get it off we say it here, get it off your chest. And one of the things you talk about is not just recognizing and naming the trauma, but saying it out loud is like part of the healing and not hiding it.
Yes.
Do you recommend, though, that a parent who feels that she has or he has PTSD says to the kid, this is what I'm suffering, or I have this trauma?
So yes and no. I think we can sometimes share an aspect of our story with our kids, but we have to remember developmental appropriateness. We also have to remember that while parenting our kids can heal us, and I have a tagline in the book that your inner child can't raise a child, but raising your child can heal your inner child, right? Your children can help you heal, but it's not their responsibility to heal you. They're the map very often and the mirror and the motivation for your healing, but it's not their job. So what you want to share is what's developmentally appropriate, what they can hear and what they can understand. Like my children know that, for example, I startle if you touch me and I'm not expecting it. I have a very heightened startle response. So I've taught my children, is this anyway good for consent in general? Mommy, can I hug you now? Are you available? Right? They say those things. And I tell them I have big reactions when I'm startled. They don't need to know more than that. They don't need to know my whole story. Certainly my older teenagers know that I have a very strong feeling about smoking and about substances given my father's history, right? So they know that because at that age, I'm able to share that with them. This is how I feel about this. And I'm able to share that with them because they're older. But for another example, I had somebody in the post-traumatic parenting community who was staying away from family holiday parties because her dad's a mean drunk. And her mom would say to the grandchildren, tell your mom you want to come, and we decided talking it over that she wants to come for like an hour, and then once the alcohol comes out, we're talking Thanksgiving now specifically, but once the alcohol comes out, she wants to leave. So how do I explain that to a 5-year-old? She's not going to start talking about everything and all her trauma and all her damage. Sometimes when grandpa drinks alcohol, he says hurting words. And when he said hurting words to me when I was a child, it hurt me badly. Now you are a child. It's my job to make sure you don't hear those hurting words. So we're going to stay at the party until the alcohol comes out, and then we're going to go home. We're explaining it. Kid's not being the therapist. The kid doesn't have to fix mom. We're explaining it in a way the kid can understand. We're not pathologizing dad. We're not like he's a narcissistic drunk, whatever, right? We're not doing any of that.
Of course.
Just straightforward, explaining the piece of the trauma that they need to hear. And that's it. That's all they need. That's all they need to hear.
Can parents with PTSD, without doing this work, ever parent well, confidently, or correctly, in your opinion? Or do you have to do the work?
I feel like parenting is that one deep relationship where you do have to do that work. In every other situation, think of my story, right? I was very dissociated and very perfectionist. So my bosses loved that, right? It was great. I mean, I remember once having a conversation with a supervisor of mine on a research project where I told her, don't send me Slack updates every 15 minutes to find out how I'm doing because it's going to interrupt my flow. Give me 2 hours. Your data will be coded. It will be perfect. Don't interrupt me. Don't monitor me. You'll be very happy with the results. I'm not one of the undergrads on this project who are probably in Starbucks or getting their nails done. I'm doing the work. I'll give it to you in an hour or whatever, right? And then my boss understood that and it was great. My friends know that I sometimes, back then, my friends knew that I sometimes space out and that was my quirk. Oh, that's just Robyn. I'll say wait, just what happened the last half hour? What's going on in the movie? They'll tell me. My husband knows how to be like, are you focusing right now or can we talk?
I was going to bring up husbands because I think this work is so valuable, like I said, with our whole parenting ourselves, parenting our children, dealing with spouse partnership at home. The more we know about ourselves and the more our partners know about us, and even telling your family something like I startle easily is so helpful.
Yeah. It's so helpful because then they don't feel rejected. And also you're explaining it in terms they can understand. Because if you recoil when your kid comes to hug you, they're going to feel rejected, particularly if they're a toddler. They're going to feel bad and you're going to feel bad that they feel bad and then it becomes a whole spiral. But you're right with husbands, with anybody you care about, with friends, it's not great, but they can make space for it. My kids couldn't make space for it. So when my son was 10 years old, he actually said to me, Mommy, where do you go when you go away behind your eyes? And he started to cry. And that's when I realized I need to do this work on a whole nother level. Because I dissociated. I was such a good technician of parenting, right? I could do supper time and bedtime and homework and half my brain is coding data. And it looked very functional on the surface, right? Everybody would come to my house like, whoa, you're a great mom. Everything's so organized and everything and yet I wasn't there. And I had to learn, how do I feel stress and still stay there? Because it is a superpower. My trauma adaptation, all trauma adaptation, someone who's a people pleaser and who can read the undercurrents in a room, that's a superpower. Even someone who gets angry easily and, they get things done, right? They accomplish things. There's a superpower aspect to it. In every other relationship, there's a way to make it work. It doesn't work on a developing brain and a psyche. So it's not that you can't do it without parenting. It's just that parenting may be the only why that actually gets you to change.
Mm-hmm.
So the app is running constantly, but your suggestion is they send me a notification and I say, no, I don't want to be notified right now.
Right.
How else does it work? Tell me the other things
So
about
let's
the
say
app.
my stress levels are rising. Like I remember when my son told me that, I remember thinking, wait a minute, you want me to not dissociate and you want me to feel my feelings, but then I'll yell at you. And in my mind, yelling is the worst thing a parent can do. So I can't yell at you. So back then, that was my thinking. So what am I going to do? And so when I told the trauma app, I'm going to deselect your permission, I'm going to stay present, the trauma app was giving me those warnings. You're going to yell, you're going to yell, you're going to yell, right? Warnings, deselecting this permission will destabilize the system, right? Like it will do. And then I learned to do things like when I'm feeling a lot of stress, I'm going to sing instead of speak. You can't yell when you're singing. I can't yell when I'm singing. I don't have your musical theater background, Judy, so I can't.
Would you like to hear it? Because I'll yell at you singing right now.
Oh, gosh.
I cannot. I don't have the breath control, right? Or, I will feel stress and I will want to criticize right now because that perfectionism piece. And I'm going to say, thank you, trauma app. You're trying to tell me to criticize her. That's not going to work right now. So instead, I'm going to ask her questions, right? Instead of criticizing. Or I'm not going to say anything at all for half an hour. Then perhaps I'll start talking about the situation. So it's about like very mindfully saying, what permissions do I want to deselect? I don't want to deselect my dissociation always. If I'm on a plane traveling to speak, I go all over the country, like talking about trauma-informed teaching and learning in schools. I want to be able to space out on the plane and focus on what I'm writing. I do not want to be, present at that moment. I don't particularly love being on the plane. I want to be able to do that. I just don't want to have to do it with my kids. I don't want it to take me over. Every parent will tell me, like, I don't know how could I yell at my kid? Or how could I give my kid the silent treatment for 3 days? Or how come I keep giving in? Every time I mean to say no, yes comes out. And you feel so much shame, but it's not you, it's your trauma. Your trauma taught you to do this. It's a superpower. It works. Think about every superhero movie ever. The superpower is great until you try to live your actual life. And then it messes you up. That's the plot of every Marvel movie, right?
It's such a good point. That's excellent. All right. So now you told me that I can actually be this way, but learn how to work with it. It's not going to heal, but I can learn how to work with it.
Yeah.
Not me, all of us. And not just as parents, but as Corey pointed out, anybody.
As people. Yeah.
People.
As people. What about generational trauma that people might or might not be aware that's in their family history?
So I think the way we look at that is we go in the other direction and we say, what's something you're very frustrated about that you don't like that you do? And then where did you learn it, right? Because trauma is really just an instance of learning. And very often it is a generational trauma. I'll give you an example from my life. I used to have a real struggle with emotional eating and with eating healthy and things like that. And a lot of it came from my grandmother and my mother saying, take another slice because you'll be hungry later. My grandmother especially. My grandmother was raised in real poverty, came to this country as an immigrant with absolutely nothing. And she really had to cope with, I don't know where my next meal is coming from.
Yeah.
In my grandmother's mind, you'll be hungry later is the worst possible thing. For me to unpack, wait, why am I eating this? I'm not even hungry. My stomach is actually telling me to stop eating. I don't want this food. Why am I eating this? Well, I'll be hungry later. And this, my therapist really helped me see, okay, so I have a fridge. I have other trauma. That is not an insecurity I have. Food is plentiful. I can always find it, right? If I'm hungry later, here's a thought. I'll go eat, right? I only realized I was carrying that from my grandmother and that level of trauma of scarcity and fear. And, I only knew that when I got frustrated with why can't I get a handle on this, right? So go in that direction. Why can't I get a handle on this? Where did I learn it? Does it still apply right now?
You can break the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's just about being aware. Once you're made aware of something, it changes everything.
Yeah.
So
100%.
For me, like I'll give a personal story. When I used to go to funerals, I would cry uncontrollably. But longer than the family, harder than the family, I went through tissues and it was a mess. And I would look around and say, my reaction is, this is not an okay reaction. And I don't know if this is correct or not, but my father lost his mom when he was really young. He was a teenager. And I don't know that he processed the loss. You know, it was the probably early 60s. He was a teenage boy at the time. You know, they weren't saying, how do you feel? Back then.
He didn't.
You know?
We know he didn't process the loss, right?
He probably didn't. And I really felt like somebody had suggested the idea to me that I'm carrying the loss. I'm feeling the feelings he didn't feel. And it just felt right. It felt like, oh, that feels right.
Yeah.
And guess what? I still cry at funerals, but not like that.
That's so amazing. And that's why, going back to the awareness thing, that's probably Dr. Koslowitz, because before I said Koslowitz, I apologize. That's probably step one, is having an awareness that something is going on, right?
Yeah. I sat when I was trying to write this TED Talk, I sat and I was just like panicking. And then I was like, hi, perfectionism, you're here telling me that this is important. I better not mess up. Thanks. Appreciate it. Good information to have. And that's it. You can go now. Like, you can wander around in my brain, but I'm not paying that much attention to you. It's just the awareness, right? Just that ability to say, oh, that's what's going on. And it's interesting, Corey, because the way you said it is, I don't know if this is right, but no one gets to doubt your experience of your experience. This resonated with you.
Yes.
Then it's right.
I love to actually end there, because I think a lot of what we do as parents, and especially as women in general, is we don't want to accept things. This is really, a lot of it is about acceptance, as you said. Okay, I see you want me to do this. Great. I see you anxiety. I see you fear. I see you trauma. Welcome. Have a seat. Go sit over there. I'm not going to deal with you right now. And I think that goes a long way in, as you mentioned, in allowing us to not let it have that power over us. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I will tell you that every form of psychotherapy for trauma, what they all have in common, no matter what approach you're talking about, is they all have a component. In the book, I call it AIM, acceptance, integration, where you so acceptance is, this is true. These emotions are here. They're not going anywhere. This thing happened to me. It's never going to change. I wish it would, but it's not going to. It's like getting rid of counterfactual thinking. Like, I wish this didn't happen. It did happen. Integration, where you bring it into your sense of self and you say, this happened and I will expand around it. And who am I now? What wisdom do I have? And then meaning. You make a meaning or a mission out of it. Now that I know this, what mission, what does this tell me about life? Like, maybe, Corey, for you, there's a mission around valuing relationships and valuing family, or valuing, right? Because we're only sad for a relationship that is meaningful. So maybe there's like a mission in that. For me, it was this macro mission of, let me share post-traumatic parenting with the world so that no mom will feel as alone as I did. But also the small mission of, my children will have a present mom, right? That's my mission. That's for every form recovering from any trauma. It's always AIM.
When you're done with your TED Talk, what do you want your audience to leave thinking or feeling?
Such a good question. Oh my gosh.
Such a good question. I love it. And I love it because it's so helpful for how to organize the talk. I want them to understand that trauma is not a wound. You don't get over it. It's an app. And you can deselect permissions on an app. And if you see it that way, you don't struggle with yourself and you don't get mad at yourself thinking like, why am I not better yet? What's wrong with me? I'm doing it wrong. Instead, you understand that, yeah, it's an app. And until I mindfully deselect the permissions on this app, it's not going to change. So that's really my goal, is really, I want to explode this myth that trauma is a wound. I want the world to know this. Trauma is an app.
That feels very empowering.
I'm glad. That's what I was going for.
Yeah,
definitely.
It feels empowering. It feels like we play a part in breaking the cycle. And there's a specific action or actions that we can do to create a better life for ourselves and our families.
Yeah, because who wants to walk around feeling damaged, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's not a great way to feel. But if I feel like I have software that I can sometimes actually turn on mindfully because I want it, I have a superpower. And there are times that I want to turn it off and I can. It's mine and I get to do what I want. It's my very own brain. I get to do what I want with it. To me, for me, that was certainly very empowering.
Such a powerful message. I could talk to you all day. I'm sure Corey feels the same. But I want to really thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. It's so important.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time, just because I know that both of you are such thoughtful interviewers. And this episode, I really enjoyed recording it.
Well, we're happy. We're happy that you were able to say it here.
That's right. And that is our truth, kids. And we just said it. We said it here. So until next time,
skip perfection.
Choose connection. Thanks so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a rating and a 5-star review. It really helps other people find the show. If you want to connect with us more, find us at Say It Here Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Say It Here is sponsored by Safe Parenting. The show is hosted and executive produced by us, Judy Franco and Corey Adjmi. Production and editing support is done by the team at Resonate Recordings. We'll see you in the next episode.